And hello and welcome to PM Express, the business edition. My name is JoyNews. Now, Ghana in 2015 signed the extended credit facility with the International Monetary Fund, first for policy credibility to stabilize the economy and foster a return to higher growth. About 8 IMF staff reviews have been done, and we are expected to get the last tranche of $185 million, which should bring total funds to about $925 million. On PM Express Business Edition, we are trying to find out if government can sustain the momentum or things are going to get out of hand. And let us go back for the IMF policy credibility again. Well, for this discussion, I'll be getting persons who really appreciate the situation in terms of people who've followed the situation very well. Professor Godfrey Bokpin is an economist and a finance lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. We'll also hear from Dr. Albert Tumamama, who is the IMF country representative to Ghana. I'm also expected to formally end the program that is next Tuesday. But the question is, can we maintain the momentum? We'll be back after this break. The economists will always say, all other things being equal, Tuesday, that is next week, Ghana is expected to exit the IMF program. But for us, the question that we are asking on PM Express Business Edition is that can we sustain this momentum, the fairly stability that we've seen over the past 3 to 4 years under this IMF program, or we'll go back knocking on the fund's door that we need some credibility to go out onto the international market and borrow, or even to convince donors that indeed you can work with Ghana. That is what we are trying to explore this time on PM Express. And Professor Godfrey Bokpin, he is an economist, he's a finance lecturer at University of Ghana Business School. He also with a civil society group that we can, I think the name has changed from
Economic Governance Platform.
It used to be the civil society group
Platform on the IMF.
IMF, and they followed this program so much that he's the best person to do some analysis on this program. We'll also be hearing, and we had a taped interview with the IMF country representative, Dr. Albert Tuna Mama, actually, which is also going to join in this discussion to share his thoughts actually with respect to what the fund makes of this program, what is next for us, and whether we have gotten there or there are still challenges for us. PM Express Business Edition, IMF program completion. Can we sustain what we have seen over the past years, or things are indeed going to get out of hand? Prof, let me say Prof now because it's a professor. Welcome to PM Express Business Edition.
Thank you, and good evening to our cherished.
Thank you so much on that one. And let's understand. I mean, Georgia, Ghana is a member of the International Monetary Fund. Yes. Why do members again have to sign up for a program? Just a little bit of a workings here in terms of Ghana signing up for the IMF program and all the problems. Just give us some basic understanding about this whole program that the IMF has and why, if I'm a member of a society of a group and I'm bound by certain rules, why do I need to be placed under a specific program to give me policy credibility, to show people out there that I'm doing the right things?
Okay, thank you very much. I think that so Ghana officially joined the IMF on September 20th, 1957. That makes us a member. Okay. So by being a member, you submit yourself to certain review, especially financial, economic, essentially to provide some kind of insight and review and advise us in terms of financial stability, exchange rate, and all those things. Essentially to also promote greater economic cooperation and international trade. So you realize that the bulk of the international trade we do, the import we do so on credit. So somebody would have walked to a shop and says, I want to buy this mobile phone. He's paying for it in cedis. But the manufacturer of the mobile phone doesn't know cedis. It's not interested in cedis. Even though the Ghanaian says I've paid for the mobile phone, but payment has not taken place until a dollar equivalent of that amount is transferred out of this country. So you realize that owing is translated into our current account deficit. So countries go through some kind of challenges. But the idea is that being a member, also you have this avenue that when you are going through certain challenges, structurally, mostly, they have this intervention, let's call it a treatment, that they can place you on that and then help you to restructure. Placing you under that also enables you to get some kind of financial support, largely balance of payment support. Balance of payment essentially will go to your international reserves to also help you pay for perhaps goods and services that you have consumed that you haven't paid because you needed dollars. Your generation capacity is in cedis. Your servicing obligation is in dollars or it's in euros or something. So they do all of that. So countries go through all of that. The IMF has got the extended credit facility.
Yeah, that is what we signed up for.
Yes, mostly a lot of people who go for that one. There's also the rapid credit facilities. That's like when the country is in a coma. You get there, I mean, then it's like they also have the policy support instrument, which perhaps Ghana could have chosen to have gone for that one after.
So the policy support doesn't come with cash,
no,
right?
It doesn't.
So it's just them coming in to assist you, and that stamp of approval that again you're back, you're in good
your
health.
Policies are this. They also tell you where you are going wrong, and more so there is the credibility that comes along with it. Even though we are exiting, we'll still be going through the Article 4 review, which they will normally
Article 4, they do post a report on every member country about how you're managing the economy.
Your monetary policies, fiscal policies, stability issues, systemic risk, and all of that. So they will continue to do that once we are a member, and they do that for any country that is a member of the IMF.
Now let's try and understand what is different about what the fund will be proposing. So let's just say there's a club of students doing their PhD in economics. The few of us are in a club now. It's been established that I am struggling.
Yes.
What makes the advice of the other two members so critical for me to get back on a strong footing? Because Ghana is part of the fund IMF. So why is it that when a country has a problem, he turns to the same group that he is a member for them to advise him, and somebody who is out of that group believes in the verdict of that group that Ghana is a member?
Yes, because of the credibility that the IMF,
the institution
has got.
IMF,
yes,
the corporate
I mean,
IMF.
You cannot run away from that. I mean, they've got that credibility, and sometimes we are not that known in the international market, especially after we became a middle-income country. Our access to concessionary loan, aid, and all those things are no longer there. So we shifted in terms of our borrowings and all of that. So we are doing a lot more commercial borrowing from the international capital market. That credibility is very, very important. Your country's rating is very, very important. And you remember, we can summarize all of this in terms of why we went for the latest program. We went for the latest program also because we needed that policy credibility. Remember, we had gone to Senchi, and then
because at that time, some are saying that at that time is because our donors forced us for that program, because they thought that yes, you are in crisis, you are coming for financial support from us. We don't trust in your ability to manage the economy, to manage the funds. So go to the IMF, get that supervision, and they will come in and support you. That is what we had at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of that. It's all part of the policy credibility. It's all part of the market confidence in our economy. But we also have structural issues. We had structural issues that the Senchi consensus translating into the homegrown policy, fiscal consolidation, actually didn't work. So if you look at the original program that was approved in April 2015, there was an admission that the homegrown policy actually failed. And that is how come we had to turn to the IMF. And the program is not an IMF program. It's Ghana government program supported by the IMF. We made the application. We submitted all those things and got the support.
But if we can do that, then why do we need the IMF?
The idea is that internally we had failed to institutionalize fiscal discipline. And therefore, the IMF...
we're spending more than what we are raising in terms of revenue.
And sometimes when you lose your credibility, you just can't pick it up that easily. So that was what we went through. We had made gains. Remember, I mean, this has been quite irregular. Let's be very... And
we'll be coming back when the question about whether indeed this will be the last time that we are going for this fund program.
We have been very regular in terms of our visit to the IMF. Remember, between July 2009 and July 2012, Ghana was under an IMF program. Even though we exited one program somewhere 2006 after the HEPE completion and then the Multilateral Debt Relief Initiative. We finished that. By the end of 2006, Ghana's debt to GDP ratio was around 26%. We had fiscal space, we could scale up infrastructure, investment and all of that. So we took a decision to file for a divorce from the IMF. And it wasn't difficult. They granted it. You want to be on your own? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Less than 3 years, we made a U-turn.
This program has been a quite interesting program. Even when first we are going to sign, we are not going to sign. It became a whole debate altogether. For us who are reporting on these issues, was a very, very interesting thing. Again, moving on, reviews. There were serious disagreements. Now, all too soon, next Tuesday, we are going to...
It's all over.
It's all over.
Yeah.
April 2nd, I'm right. We're going to get it over. The concern here is that have we put the right structures in place to ensure that that momentum can be kept after the exit of our big brothers who are supervising us every month, coming in for the reviews and all the rest? Are you convinced? Yes, the laws are there. The same fiscal laws were there and we're having overruns. We go to Parliament, Parliament approves 60 billion for us. The next year we spend 65 billion. As for laws, it looks like Ghana is good at having all the laws in place.
Our laws are observed more in breach than in compliance.
Yeah. So that is what, so I'm asking you, for you, exiting this program, are you convinced that we can do it?
No, I am not. I'm not. There's a part of me that tells me that let's give Ghana the benefit of the doubt. Let's give the current managers of the economy the benefit of the doubt. But I think that so far what I've seen, I'm a bit concerned that we may not be able to entrench fiscal discipline. We have not been able to institutionalize a kind of an agency that can actually act as an important, independent, democratic, accountability measure that will hold government accountable. We have not. We had hoped that we had a Public Financial Management Act also coming out of this program. Then the government talked about the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Beautiful. We capped the fiscal deficit at 5% of GDP. Beautiful. Then we were hoping that the Fiscal Council was going to be independent. Then government made it advisory. And I think they should take another look. That is
where the problem is.
I think they should take another look. You don't think that
the structures are there?
No. By making it advisory in the first place, is such that the council can only achieve limited effectiveness. It has nothing to do with the composition of the council. I don't have a problem with the composition of the council. I think that we've got very good people on the council, but I think by way of design, it is just that it can only achieve limited effectiveness. And it has more to do with the confidence investors will have in the economy. Remember, the economy is open. It's exposed. If you look at our debt portfolio, our debt stock, the composition. I mean, we have a lot of foreign investors participating in our debt stock, even for CD-denominated issue and all of that. So you want to be very careful, not only in terms of satisfying the domestic stakeholders, but you're also interested in external stakeholders in our economy. And for that reason, I'm thinking that government should take a bold decision and take another look at how they have structured the Fiscal Council.
But what about all the commitment? This afternoon, when the finance minister came to Parliament and presented a statement on the IMF, the Eurobond, after that, we actually gathered around him and posed this question to him about those practical measures he believes that he has put in place to ensure that we'll be disciplined post the IMF program. Let's listen to him, or let's watch him.
You know, what we have done at the end of last year, we passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which in a sense sort of constrained the budget deficit to 5%, and also to ensure a positive primary balance. And then there will be a censure on the Minister of Finance in the event of a breach. And I think that's as far as any sort of law has gone in our history. Then secondly, we also set up the Financial Stability Advisory Council, and then the Fiscal Council, which is headed by Dr. Aqua, former governor. The expectation of all of this is to ensure that we are consistently on top of the macroeconomics of the country and making sure that we work within the budget that Parliament would have approved. So those are important. In addition to that, we set up the Economic Planning and Coordinating Council, and that will be chaired by the governor and myself, so that we don't have any slippages, in the macro and fiscal policies. So we feel really good about where we are. And as you know, Article 4 also enables us to continue to engage with the IMF, and we have a resident rep here. So we are looking forward to working effectively to discipline ourselves. As you know, we are signing a social partnership agreement with labor and also employers, and that will be helpful in terms of bringing transparency to how we manage the economy.
And someone say the biggest test will be an election year. How committed are you to sticking to these things when there's pressure from the electorate to spend?
I think the good thing about that is that we've been through an election cycle before in 2004, and as you know, the senior minister and the Kufuor government were able to hold steady. And with all of that, we expect to be able to do that. I think we'll have to front load things like infrastructure, finance, and support with the Sino-Hydro transaction. So we are comfortable that we would not need to do anything that would derail the economy in election time.
So that was the Finance Minister, Ken Ofri-Atta, today in Parliament, giving some firm assurance again that we will be prudent with our expenditure post this IMF program. Prof, I mean, what else do we want? I mean, the minister can now be jailed for overspending. What commitment again do we want that after this IMF program, they can manage the economy?
Well, thank you very much. Let me also commend government, first of all, for this initiative. So far as the history of our economic governance is concerned, they've been quite bold in terms of even setting up passing the Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Advisory Council. So we commend them for that. But what we are saying is that we could have done a little better by making the council particularly independent. Independent largely because then it could act as a proper fiscal restraint agent in the country. Making it advisory in itself, it makes that the council is compromised to some extent. What makes us so different from, let's say, South Africa in terms of how they have operationalized their fiscal council? What makes us different from Kenya? What makes us different from Uganda and how they have done theirs? What makes us different from the US in terms of the Congressional Budget Office that they have? What makes us different from that of UK? What makes us different from Canada? What makes us different from Sweden and all of that? But of course, in terms of scope and then the extent of the independence, we could vary a bit. But I think that we have best practices to learn from. And I think that the trend is gearing towards making it independent.
In all this, our problem has been those people outside the country who are investing in our economy.
Yes.
Now, we were going to exit the IMF program. I read the development in the Eurobond market and the auctioning, and for me, I describe these offshore investors as interested. Doesn't it demonstrate to you that they believe that those who are managing the economic space can do it even without an IMF program?
Well, remember the yield comparatively is also high compared to what they would have gotten in their own country. It's dollar denominated. What is the exchange rate in this? Settlement is going to be done in dollars and all of that. But don't remember, they have bought into a 7-year bond, a 12-year bond, 31-year bond. So it has more to do with maybe the yield that they are getting and the fact that the country will not disappear in the next 30 years or so. Perhaps their confidence may even go beyond the current government, because they don't think that this government will be there in the next 30 years or so. So you should also look at the tenure and all of that. But don't forget that something in the range of 8%, 8.1 to 5% or so is still high, even though I believe that given our fundamentals, the team for Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana have done a good job. The rates are fairly okay for me. Like we always say, as a borrower, you go to the market to borrow at the lowest cost. You want to minimize your cost of borrowing. So we will say maybe it could have been better. But of course, what we have is not that bad. So you want to look at it from that end. But don't also forget that with all this, we are setting aside a huge amount of money just to service our debts. 2019 budget, we are talking about 18.6 billion.
There's always a
cedis.
scenario that I know way back in school, we always talk about, and for those who don't know, he was my lecturer at University of Ghana, Legon, and those who say that every 10 Ghana cedi that government takes, a fraction goes to settle debts, and then
just to service the debt. We are setting
to help us refresh our mind again.
So we
if, for instance, government takes 10 Ghana cedis.
So currently, for every cedi tax revenue that we generate, about 48 pesos of that goes to just debt servicing. We are not talking about principal repayment. For the principal repayment, we do rollover. We take fresh debt to retire maturing debt. So you look at the $3 billion that we have just gotten. 1 billion is geared towards liability management. Infrastructure financing is about 2 billion. This is what we have been doing. So part of the Eurobonds we have done in the last 2-3 years or so, part were meant to retire the first Eurobond we did in 2007. I wouldn't say there's something particularly wrong with that, but what we are saying is that it's crowding our priority spending, whether we like it or not. And we are setting aside a higher amount just to service our debt than actually we do in terms of capital spending from the central government. It's not like it's the creation of this government. It's not like the creation of the previous government. This is Ghana's problem that we have to
I'll be coming back to you and even ask you the question about whether we can get out of this whole borrowing challenge, because it looks appears we'll go out, reborrow, and to settle all debts and all the rest. And when we come back, we shouldn't take a short break. When we come back, Dr. Albert Tunamama, he is the country representative for the IMF. He'll be joining in this discussion as well, as we put him. The IMF has been loved, cursed, and hated for what they've done to, some would say, our country. Depending on where you're standing, some would say they've done good for us, others will also think that they have been bad to us. He is the new country rep to Ghana. I'll be joining this discussion, put all those issues to him. This is PM Express Business Edition. We'll be back after this break. As Business Edition on PM Express, and today we're looking at whether government can maintain that fair stability that we've seen over the past 4 years. The IMF Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, has always maintained that we couldn't have gotten to this stage without the fund program. So now that they are leaving us, now that we are exiting the program, are you that convinced that we can maintain that momentum, or we'll get back again to the fund, knocking on their doors? Masanaba, I'm back to you guys. I need a policy credibility. This evening, we're looking at this program. Godfrey Bobkin is a professor, economics and finance, University of Ghana, Legon. We're getting his thoughts. We're also getting the thoughts of the IMF, Dr. Albert Mamatuna. He is the country rep for the International Monetary Fund. And also you viewers out there, you can join in this conversation via Facebook with your thoughts on whether you are convinced that the outlook is that safe for us, or again, you are a little bit worried as a consumer, as a businessman out there. So, Prof, let me get back to you on the bit about our cost of borrowing and all the rest and blah, blah, that. Do you think that the outlook, is that okay for us after this program? Because we have put in, if it's the laws, we have the laws in place.
So, yes, fine. We have the laws in place, even with the Fiscal Council being advisory. I think that Ghana has got, I'm not a lawyer, but my little understanding is that we've got beautiful laws. We'll be able to observe them. we will go a long way. If we'll be able to walk our talk and talk our walk, it will be very, very important.
Prof, I want you to, just a quick one, I want to bring in Dr. Albert Mamatune. He is the country representative for the IMF, and been getting his thoughts on this whole fund program and whether he is that optimistic that the economy has indeed been stabilized. We captured his comments in an interview we had earlier on, and let's listen to him, or let's watch him.
The macroeconomic environment is better, that the prospects seems to be promising, including because of, potentially improve revenues from oil, and that story seems to be important. But I think it's important to say that it doesn't mean that the vulnerabilities have all been addressed. I think this is a message that it's important to have, right? The work continues. The work have to continue. And there are a couple of areas where we think that, and I think that's the shared view, work needs to continue. If you think, for example, about domestic revenue mobilization, right? An important legislation was laid in Parliament, I think last week, on exemptions, tax exemptions. These are, legislation that may eventually bring enough, tax revenues and ensure that there is a fiscal space to, fund important government programs, and if needed be, also reduce the debt stock. So this is an important area where more work needs to be done. The debt level and also the exposure to foreign investors is also something that needs to be managed carefully. I think we've all seen, and I guess here it's also it's a blessing, but it also has a cost. It seems that, I just alluded to the issuance of the Eurobond. It seems that Ghana, at least in the minds of investors, has reached a certain stature. I mean, if you look at the oversubscription of the bond that they've just issued, for example, 6 times oversubscribed, what it means also is that, all eyes are now on Ghana. And, something that happened last year whereby, for reasons that are, people can discuss, investors decided to withdraw money, and that had some implication. So the attention is important. It brings some much needed funding, and it also has a side effect that needs to be managed carefully. So this is, potentially also a vulnerability that everybody is aware of. One other area, I guess, where the work is not over is in the energy sector. Our colleagues from the World Bank are working really closely with the authorities to support when asked to rationalize that sector. But work needs to be done, and more generally to tackle fiscal risk. So that's really where we are, I should say.
Going into this Eurobond, I knew that the fund was hoping that the authorities would hold on post the board meeting. They went ahead to do it, and the results was there. Again, some would say that is it a clear indication that we believe in those who are managing the economy than the fund, or what do you make of that one?
I mean, I'm surprised that you thought that we were holding back. Clearly, your source
give approval to the bond for it to go ahead without the
we don't need to give.
meeting.
We don't need
or
to.
Let me use the word. Was the board comfortable? The fund comfortable with the fundraising going ahead of the board meeting?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It's not the board that
Staff.
Yes, staff were perfectly comfortable. 100%. I mean, yes, we do have an impact, but I think investors do a lot of due diligence, right? And it's not just on the strength of our program that the issuance was successful. it's on the Ghanaian story of what is the outlook, what are the prospects, and where is the economy at this stage, right? So it was. I think we were as excited, if I can say that.
You raised a bit about again our debt composition, and then
Yes.
the exposure is something that we should watch.
I think it's something that should be managed carefully. Definitely, I think that when I say it's also a blessing because you like the attention. I think that there are a lot of African countries that would like to go to the issue an Eurobond and be so overwhelmed, right? It has some implications that just need to be managed carefully. Something like understand a bit the nature and the stability of the flows that are coming, right? And probably anticipate, turning points. For example, last year, the pressures really started based on what was happening in Argentina and Turkey, right? Common investors that had exposure in Ghana and Argentina, because they were losing money in Argentina and Turkey, they decided to change the composition of their portfolio. So Ghana was just a collateral damage. So you need to be mindful of that when you have so much exposure, right? But in absolute, I think it's a good position to be in, to be able to attract enough funding for, to finance your economic growth, your budget, and all other important projects.
I remember I spoke to the World Bank country director about the Eurobond. I said, George, as long as they will go into infrastructure projects, they'll go into retiring the old debts and sticking to those areas, we are for it. Again, for you, what is the advice to government? Good interest in your economy, but let's make sure that this funds doesn't end up choking the small baby.
No, I think it's perfectly aligned with what you just said. Part of the money will go to these infrastructure projects, and the rest will be in what we call liability management. So retire some expensive bonds. There is a huge payment coming in 2023. So the goal is to reduce that. And so that's exactly what the authorities have decided to do about it.
There are people who were so excited that we just cannot wait for the fund to go and let's see what government will do. For you on your part, I believe that you want good testimonial even after this program. What is the fund putting in place, just like any other country that is a member, to ensure that post-exit of an extended credit facility and all the rest, will live up to expectation and even become an example for other countries in the sub-region that are still thinking about whether I should sign up for a policy instrument or an extended credit facility or not?
I mean, the program has ended, right? And, what we receive as, you can call it assurance or statement or actions, I would say actions, of the policies put in place and infrastructure put in place by the authorities, are a set of commitment to maintain what they call irreversibility. If you think about some groundbreaking, recent legislation, the Public Financial Management Act, the regulations were laid to Parliament again a couple of days ago. You think about the fiscal responsibility law, which caps overall deficit at 5% and requires a primary surplus. You think about the fiscal stability, the fiscal council and the Financial Stability Council. So these are the most visible part of the legislation that were put out there to maintain irreversibility, to maintain fiscal discipline. But there are also some very subtle ones that are not obviously visible. Something that we had in the program was a cap on non-concessional debt. right? Expensive debt, let me put it this way. The program has ended, but the authorities on their own have decided to maintain that, right? So this is not something imposed by the IMF. Something else that is there to also limit the risk on the public purse, it's a better credit assessment of debt request or loan request coming from state-owned enterprises to control that. So, you know, credit needs to go where credit is due, and I think that those regulations, those actions are important.
And that was Dr. Mama Toure. He's the country representative for the IMF. Prof, Doc is so optimistic about the economy and also managing the space. Well, politically correct?
I think that there is reason to be optimistic. I think we cannot run away from that.
The measures are there.
Yes. I mean, in the last 2 years, we cannot run away from the prudent economic management that the government had embarked upon and the overall economic management strategy. We've made some gains. I mean, from 2016 today, when you look at the fundamentals, you cannot look at that and objectively conclude that things have deteriorated. No. We've made progress. If you look at the speed of adjustment within the last 2 years and the various IMF, the program reviews that they have done, largely you can see that they've done quite well. But we don't need to be too worried about the IMF exiting, because even under periods that we were under the IMF program, we had exhibited significant fiscal indiscipline, like 2016. 2016, during the election, we were still under the IMF program, and yet the gains that were made in the first year of the program implementation were practically reversed in 2016 during the election, even though we were under an IMF program. So the fact that the IMF is exiting necessarily does not suggest that we are back to our old ways, because even with the supervision of the IMF, we still recorded fiscal deficits of more than 8% on cash basis in 2016. So I'm thinking that, fine, their exit, the reason I'm giving government the benefit of the doubt is that their exit can be a good platform for us to put practical meaning to Ghana beyond aid. And the good test will be 2020 election.
Prof, yeah, and that's what we asked the finance minister. Also be coming to you about the cost of this program and whether we should be that excited. One of it was a subtle freeze on employment into the public sector. Now that the program has ended, should my sister somewhere be excited that he can get a job? But we put on the platform trying to get people's views on Facebook about whether they are convinced that government will be able to manage the economy or not. Let's see what Facebook is saying. And it says that, do you think that government can sustain the momentum after completing the IMF program? Let's see what is here. Interesting. Mr. Nto says, well, they don't have anything good to offer. Molly Fuga says, big grammar. No, they manage economy. See his like soccer bet slipped very, I mean, where's Paul? Mixing English pidgin. And Chris Marty says they are now in their fantasy world. They have no idea what is going on. Molly Fuga again says government should, as a matter of policy and urgency, significantly cut down on borrowing now, and government should anchor fiscal policy a debt reduction target immediately and announce it. Fiscal policy currently has no effect on anchor. Interesting arguments there. Adam says that interesting comments over there. Kojo GH Wood says how to vote for. Oh, interesting developments there. So let's get back again and let's see. These are interesting comments that are coming there.
Yeah.
It looks like for those who are watching us, they are not that optimistic about things getting better without the big brother.
Yeah, I think government has a bigger responsibility of anchoring the hope of Ghanaians. We have been there 16 times since independence, and history is not on our side. So it's easier for somebody to take, we're going to go back, than to say we will not go back again.
If you look into the crystal ball again, I mean, can we experience that, quote, derailment?
It is possible. If you look at the last 30 years, fiscal deficit on the average has been around 6.2, 6.3% of GDP, and that's not sustainable, even though we've capped it at 5.5% of GDP. You understand? So this is how we have managed our affairs over the years, and the deficits or the indiscipline tend to escalate during almost all the competitive elections that we have had, whether under the IMF program or without the IMF program, like we saw in 2016, like we saw in 2012, we saw in 2008. 2004 was a bit of an outlier or exception, largely because of the HIPC reliefs that we got within that particular year. The budgetary support was very huge. That election was also not that competitive. The outcome was highly predictive. When it happens that way, it also affects the way politicians behave and all of that. So these are the concerns that I want to believe that we should look at critically. You asked the question whether...
Conditionalities. So now that this program has ended, does it mean that I can get job in the public sector if I'm out there in terms of credit, borrowing, and all those subtle restrictions? Are they going to be immediately over?
No, I think that people would have to be a bit cautious in terms of their expectations, because I don't think the government is going to open the floodgate and just be recruiting.
But the reality is that we are going into an election year.
Yes, we are going, and that is where the problem is.
The election curse.
Yes, because politicians, in their bid to hang on to power, tend to yield to the public pressure as well. So we are all part of it. We are all part. People respond to incentives. If organized labor is asking for more here, and the government tend to give in. And it's not peculiar to this government alone. I mean, the two major parties that we have seen under the Fourth Republic have exhibited this tendency. So we all have a role to play. The opposition has a role to play. Government has a role to play in ensuring that fiscal discipline is entrenched, because the real test is really from the second half of next year. That is where the issue is. Until President Mills died in 2012, the figures were largely good. Remember, between July 2009 and July 2012, we were under an IMF program. So the last 4 months of 2012, we essentially destroyed all the gains that we had made, all in the name of maybe winning an election.
And that happens always.
And it happens always. And you can see that right from the last 4 months of 2012 to date, Ghana really hasn't recovered fully from those election excesses. Then we went into 2016 and all of that. So we are still, so you realize that the economy has gone through a lot of, a lot of pain as a result of all this, because we go through this expensive political business cycle. Then the first 2 years is to correct those imbalances. Then the next election comes. So it's like a cycle.
Government has talked about the fact that they are doing repricing, and then the rate of the debt growth is slowing and all the rest. But can I say that the appetite is stronger now than ever before? Now that we have completed this program and we now have our own books to manage,
I think that
with an expanding economy, aren't we going to up the scale on borrowing?
We can't do without borrowing. We have a huge infrastructure deficit that in itself imposes further restriction on the growth drivers of the economy. Our revenue envelope remains dwarfed. What do you do? So if any party came to you and told you that they would not borrow, then they don't understand the economy. Or perhaps they want to lie their way into power. The reality is that we will borrow. But the question is, at what rate? And how are we investing those proceeds? If we are borrowing to enhance the asset base of the economy and increase or enhance your ability to generate cash flow and service the debt and pay the principal, then there's nothing wrong. But I think there's a lot that we have to be able to do after the IMF program in terms of continuing with some of the structural reforms in terms of enhancing our revenue envelope, because we have a huge tax potential.
But we are not doing that.
We are not doing so. We could actually scale up our tax efforts to the tune of about 5% of GDP, which we are not doing. I'm hopeful. I haven't seen the content of the exemption bill that had gone to Parliament, because we are losing so much by way of tax exemptions and all of that. So we should be able to close those leakages and show up our revenue envelope.
And I just want to get about 2 minutes more to wrap up on this program. And for you, as we are now on our own, our parents are not there, we are now married to the world. What are the real threats to this economy and the real test to this government now that they are on their own in managing the economy post-exit this IMF program?
Yeah. So I'm looking at it this way, that this government has said so much, given how exposed we are in terms of foreign investors, given the fact that 2020 election is just around the corner. If you look at the political temperature, it's as though 2020 election started yesterday and all of that. There's so much at stake. I want to believe that the government is still very mindful of the fact that they would have to preserve the fundamentals of the economy because so many people are interested. We are all observing and all of that. So for that reason, I'm tempted to give them the benefit of the doubt. And given the fact that we are talking about Ghana beyond aid, if we fail to deliver this time, then it's going to be very difficult. And Ghanaians are going to lose their confidence in democracy because we've seen Party A come and then gone and all of that. I'm just hoping that this government will take advantage of the overwhelming support that they had in 2016 election with their numbers in parliament to really do serious structural reforms, productivity enhancing reforms, back that with the necessary legal distance. And another thing the government should take another look will be
5 seconds, Prof.
The size of government.
It couldn't do much on the Ghana CD and the minister's presentation, even in Parliament today, but all too soon, supposed to draw the curtain down on this program. It's all of us our hope that come the next 4 years or 8 years, we'll not be going back to the IMF, knocking on their doors for another extended credit facility that we are all dreading. This is Business Edition on PM Express. My name is George Yafe. I hope the debate will still go on at your homes, in your offices, at the bar, at the chop bar, at the restaurant. Enjoy your day.